Welcome back to the Inner Edison Podcast, where we talk to the innovators, risk takers, and the resilient minds who turn their biggest failures into their greatest breakthroughs. Today's guest is someone who truly embodies that Edison spirit, Jorge Olson. Jorge grew up in Tijuana without running water or electricity, suffered a traumatic brain injury, and still went on to build 5 public companies, launch over 1,000 consumer products, and raise more than $100 million in funding. He's a brand visionary, author of 5 books, including Marketing Karma, and a storyteller at heart who believes that business should bring peace, not pressure. In this conversation, Jorge and I were going to talk about creativity, not credentials, and how to shape your journey, how to sell without selling, and how anyone who can brand themselves as an expert, even starting from zero. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped with tools to build your business, your brand, the Edison way. Let's dive in. Jorge Olson, thank you so much for coming on the show today. In the beginning, I called you George, but you said you like Jorge, so we'll go that way.
All right, sounds good.
I read a bunch of stuff about you as much as I could. One of the things I learned is you were born in Tijuana.
Yes, I was.
That was a while ago, I'm sure. I don't know your age, but that's and when did you come to the States?
That's actually a very good question, because I was born and raised in Tijuana, across the border from San Diego, and I commuted to school in college. So I still lived in Tijuana, and I crossed the border every day to college. So that was my first transition. And then I moved full time when I was 30 years old. So
Jorge, where'd you go to school in San Diego?
San Diego State University.
Okay, SDSU.
Yeah,
I was
communities.
Well, I was in the Navy down there at Camp Pendleton up in Oceanside. So when I was in San Diego, I was North County, San Diego. I never was, even though I went down to San Diego, actual San Diego, and we Balboa and other places when I was in the military. But there was many a times, people, I'm sure not everybody knows where Tijuana is and how close it is to San Diego, but it's pretty close. So.
Yeah, it's shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, it's walking distance if you're in this place. Yeah. All right. So what got you? All right. I mean, because I don't, coming from, let's back up a second for me. So at one point I helped somebody take, I guess you would call it a yacht, a 40-foot ship from San Diego down to Cabo. And we stopped in Turtle Bay. And in Turtle Bay, they don't know they're poor. They just think that it's their way of life, and everybody comes in there and gets diesel and gives them gifts and everything else. What point did you realize where you were living in Tijuana? How was it? Everything that, what I mean? Because that's, people always go, oh, I feel so bad for them, but you don't understand. Not everybody understands that where they're at in their life until later. Because I grew up as a kid after my dad died at age 12, dirt road poor. It allowed me to understand going from what you had to nothing and what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. How was it for you? I mean, you were going to school. I'll let you talk in a second. Sorry, I'm just really curious. Yeah.
No, I like it. I like your curiosity. And I think that's a really good question, because it deals with economics, with mindset, and with our reality, or the perception of our reality. My perception of reality was that I was happy. So I can't say I'm happier now than I was then, because I had a lot of attention, a lot of love in my house, no money, but a lot of attention and a lot of love. And I was privy to both worlds in Tijuana, the rich world, and then the poor, and then the extra poor. I was aware of the wealth because I went to a private school. My mom taught there, so I got a scholarship. And my colleagues, the other children, because I went there since first grade, a private school, they had chauffeurs, they had cars when they were 12 years old. This is some of the richest people in Tijuana went to this school. So I went to their houses. They had elevators, they had racquetball, tennis, the whole shebang. So I knew what that meant, and I knew I had to carry water to have raw water in my house, and go get petroleum for the petroleum lamps. So I came from that world, leaky roof, the whole thing, the dirt roads. So I saw that. I didn't consider myself poor because I would go as let's say as a child missionary, I would go to the incredibly poor parts of Tijuana with the drug addicts and people who have no homes, dirt floors, no schools. And then, of course, we needed to build the schools, help them build their homes, help them get out of drugs. So for me, that was the poor, right? The poor of money and the poor of soul, because they were unhappy. They were struggling. I was happy. So in my mind, the goal was to be happy, and I was happy all the time. I mean, all the time. So then I had my goals. Later, as you said, I realized that there was more that I could do. In my case, Ed, it was because my mom and my grandma were working their butt off. So I wanted for them to stop working. So that was what really triggered the capitalistic factor in my life.
So just a little bit more about family, because I think it all makes us who we are. Your mom, you said she taught at the school. Where did she go to school to learn to teach? Is it the same as in the States? Did she go to university?
My mom finished junior high and high school when I was already a teenager. So she went back to school because she started working at 12. So she loves books. She would read a book a day, and she's a speed reader. And she went back to school, and my mom graduated from the seminary in Tijuana. So where all of the Catholic priests graduate, they did an experiment where they allowed women. My mom was the only one, the first one and the last one to graduate from the seminary. So that's where she went to school. It was philosophy and literature.
Gotcha. And so I assume that's what she taught at school?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to see how she got there. I mean, because a lot of people, and so what got you to go to the entrepreneurial route? How did you get that bug in you to go that route? Because you're going to San Diego State. You've already been around. Most people don't think of Tijuana, what you talked about, chauffeurs and all those really nice homes, but everywhere has that. It's just a matter of understanding that. Most people see the poor streets of Tijuana close to the border. They don't see further in other places.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of these folks, even back then, had houses in Tijuana and in San Diego. So they had houses in Coronado, they had houses in La Jolla or in Chula Vista, and they commuted from their houses. And then they might have a house in Cabo or somewhere else. So yes, as you say, the rich are everywhere. It's just that in Mexico, it's more pronounced. Right. The difference between the rich and the poor is very pronounced. Because we didn't have electricity or running water, that was one of our goals, to get electricity and running water. I asked for a quote, and they told me it was $1,000 per post. So the government didn't pay for it. We needed to pay. And I did the math, and I said, there's no way I'm going to do it. And working in a manufacturing facility in a maquiladora, which is the number one economy in Tijuana. Mm-hmm. So I said, I started with, I need to be a CEO. I didn't know about entrepreneurship. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know a small guy with no money could start a business, but I knew I could become a CEO. I just needed to study and work really, really hard. And
how did you know that you could be a CEO? How did you even know there was such a thing as a CEO?
When I was going to this school as a child, this private school, my mom knew what I was going to encounter, and that maybe there was going to be bullying, or there was going to be, oh, you're poor, we hate you, you don't belong in this school. So she knew all of this, and she started brainwashing me into believing that I can do whatever I want. And the way she said it is, you belong in every table. Right? She just kept saying it. Little did I realize that meant the boardroom table, right? The CEO table, right? That's what she meant. But she would say, you belong in every table. If you see rich people on the table, you're going to be there. If you see poor people on the table, you're going to be there. Intellectuals, authors, economists, you're going to be prepared to sit with all of them. And of course, she was making sure I was prepared with understanding how to educate myself, with having more than 10,000 books in my house. So access to a lot of information, and then a lot of confidence that came from my mom. My grandma also, I lived with my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother was a door-to-door saleswoman who sold printed business cards, calendars to all of the businesses in Tijuana. So very courageous, both of them. And I think I got the courage and the encouragement from them.
Well, I can see your grandma's an entrepreneur, right?
Yes. When I was a child, they used to own a little print shop. And I would clean with child labor with chemicals, right? I would clean it with gasoline or petroleum. I would clean the equipment for the next print. So I remember that. Yes, my family were printers. That was their trade. Printers.
And that's good and bad in Tijuana.
Yes.
Depending on what you're printing.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Because you never know what you need to print. All right, so when did you when did you graduated as from San Diego State? Was that for a bachelor's? Did you go on for a master's or anything, or you just finished with a bachelor's? I know I'm nosy. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I started as a business major because I wanted to be a CEO, and then I realized that the classes were not teaching me how to be a CEO. They were boring. I enjoyed one or two classes, but it was more about economics than business, because really what business means in the university is how to be an employee,
right?
And middle employee, right? Middle management, not upper management. I realized that really, really fast. I wasn't learning. I knew most of the things from reading. Now, my passion was art, as my mother, art, literature, philosophy. So I started taking a lot of these classes because that was my passion, knowing that I wasn't going to practice that part of the business or of my education. That was more for my personal upbringing in education. At the end of the day, I got my bachelor's in liberal arts and sciences, and I could have stayed one semester or less. I think I was missing 2 classes to get an MBA because I took so many business classes. However, I got hired to go to Germany and work there, so and make money. So I was over school, right? I needed to make money. I was over school, so I said, okay, I'll take it, and I moved to Europe.
And what was that business?
That was software, ERP software.
Okay. And then how long did you do that?
I stayed in Western Europe, Germany, and Spain for a year before I came back to San Diego and opened the U.S. subsidiary of that company.
Okay. And then how long were you doing that before you moved on?
I was there another 2 years, and then I moved on to another software company as VP of Business Development. In the first one, I made it all the way to Vice President and then CEO of U.S. operations. So I got my dream of being CEO at 28, and I was already making a CEO salary. So my mom retired, my grandma retired when I was 27.
Wow. Did they stay in Tijuana?
No, they both came to the U.S.
Okay.
They moved when I moved.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've been connected so long, you have to bring them with you.
Yes.
So you went from Tijuana. Did you have dirt floor?
What's that?
Did you have wooden floors? Did you have floors?
Yeah, we have floors. My mom bought a little house that was one of these houses that you move. She bought it in the U.S. for $5,000 on credit. And then she got it delivered to a little plot of land that she was buying in Tijuana.
Okay.
So we had the whole house was wood.
Right. No, the reason I was asking is because you're in Tijuana, like I was saying, the Turtle Bay, besides them not knowing their floors were all dirt, they swept them like it was a regular floor. They still did everything to keep it clean. But I was just curious because you went from the Tijuana to a Boardroom and you did really well by the time you were 27, 28. That's unusual for most people to see. And I think that is built off of your drive that you got from your family, your grandma and your mom, and her telling you, what's your favorite? Okay, in your 20s, what was your favorite business book?
Ooh.
I didn't say now. I said
Yeah. I was reading a nonfiction book every day. Well, listening in audiobooks because my commute to school was 4 hours each way.
Wow.
So I had a lot of time. And I went through a lot: philosophy, literature, history, etc. When I started, no, maybe at 25, I switched completely to business books. And the book that when I understood that I could be an entrepreneur was the book Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
So that book, because it was so simple, and he explains it with a story, and of course we're made to understand stories. And I said, okay, I'm an employee, I'm an executive, but I'm still an employee, so I'm trading dollars for hours.
Right.
And I said, okay, this has to stop. And at that moment, I started looking to buy a business. Again, in my mentality, starting a business was very difficult. And I wanted the cash flow since I was making good money. So I started looking for businesses to buy.
And what a lot of people don't realize is it's usually easier to buy a business than it is to start a business. I've always done the harder part. Because it hasn't been, I mean, it's only recently that people have found out how, I don't want to say easy, but there's a lot of businesses for sale because people are retiring and there's nobody in their family wanting to take over what they've done. And so it's a lot easier now than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You can still buy them back then, but I'm just saying there's more coming on the table now than any other time I've seen.
You're absolutely right. And I did buy a business from somebody who was retired. So you're on the money. And they turned into my mentor, which was phenomenal because I didn't know this industry. This was wholesale distribution.
Did you say postal distribution? Wholesale
distribution. That was my first business. In Germany, the person who hired me in the US. That was my first mentor. He taught me how to be a CEO. And then my second mentor was Marshall. And this was when I bought his business. And then he came out of retirement and we partnered in a national distribution business.
He got bored, huh?
Well, no, I tripled the business. So then he said, oh, okay, I think I can come back and make some bang.
All right. So it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great book. It makes you think differently. And the thing you were talking about stories is people didn't always tell stories in books the way that we do now. And even when I wrote my book, Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership, it was about, they were like, you have to have a story in it so people relate in the beginning to what you're going to talk about. And that's, and so it's so powerful. I'm on the radio and now I do podcasting on top of all that. You're telling people stories all the time. Like today, I'm asking you all these questions to get your story out there, and people want to hear that and they want to know background. A lot of people are like, I don't want to know about the background. I just want to know what you're doing now and how it's going forward. I think we are who we are because of our background. Whether or not because if you have two people who are raised in the same family, twins, identical, one could be this way, one could be the other way, and they both blame the fact of what happened to them, exactly the same thing, but they turned out totally different. And I like to see how people turn out. As I find for myself, I'm a veteran, and veterans who become business owners, they're really good because we're so attention to detail and what we're taught in the military, but we're also detrimental because we expect people to do things that we would expect that to be done, and it doesn't always work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So after the wholesale distribution business, the nationwide one. When did you get into your own? What are you doing now? Are you still doing that? You're doing something else, aren't you? Marketing. What's Marketing Karma?
That's a book that I wrote. That's my last book. And my first book was Build Your Beverage Empire, which was about wholesale distribution and creation of beverages. So that launched a beverage career that I started as a distributor, as a beverage distributor. I started accepting beverages in my business because we didn't do beverages. We manufactured our own products. More pet supplies, electronics, tools that we sold in convenience stores in our own displays and racks. So it was what we call a jobbing operation, where the distributor or the employees would go to these metal wire baskets and exchange them for new inventory and then charge the store for the delta. A lot of my distributors were retired military. I started training retired military to be a distributor because I did a little ebook that I would sell online and people would buy it about how to be a distributor. Now I changed the name and I published a book called Wholesale MBA. But it's the same book that it started as Distribution Business. That was the name of the ebook. It's now called Wholesale MBA. So I would speak with young bucks. They were 40 and they were retired, and they told me, I want to do something, but I want to do something with my kids so that I can teach them how to rely on themselves for money without going for a paycheck. So they would come to San Diego and train how to be a distributor, and then open a business in their hometown with their kids. So their kids were in the truck with them doing the deliveries and doing all of this good stuff. If they were tiny, they would do it on the weekends. If they were already graduated or in college, they would do it every day. So that was phenomenal to witness.
And are you still doing that today? What are you doing?
In some capacity,
okay.
I'm still dealing with wholesale distribution, yes.
But not beverage distribution?
Yes, because of the book, I keep getting a lot of leads from beverage companies, beverage entrepreneurs, people who want to start a beverage, etc. So I founded a company. I retired from it, but I founded a company called Fast Moving Consumer Goods, Inc. And my partner, who still runs the company, does a lot of the heavy lifting. So the funnel is mine because people recognize me from my book. They call me all the time, and then I just send the leads to my partner. And formulation, manufacturing, project management, procurement, business planning, funding, how to get funds for your business, and ultimately get an investment banker and sell the company.
Well, what you should do with I've been talking about this for 2 years, ever since GLP-1 came out, is someone needs to do a high protein alcoholic beverage.
I love it. Protein right now is prebiotics and protein are in vogue right now.
Right. It's because the GLP-1, you have to get so much protein in because you're not eating, and people still want to have a drink. But then you go, okay, I got to work this out. I lost 60 pounds on Ozempic. So I went, but I did it differently. I went and found every protein that I could find that was not going to give me calories, that I could get the protein so I didn't lose the muscle. And I'm going, okay, I've told a couple companies, even, what's that? On demand, the beverages ready to drink, whatever it's called, the cocktails ready to drink, or whatever. And I'm like, this, just add in some protein and you would sell like nobody's business, because no one's doing it yet. Definitely. And because I get some drinks that are 30 grams of protein. So I mean, they're already out there. You could just work something out and I was like, and that'll be that way for a while, because everybody's so focused on losing weight that besides no calories and tasting good, but if you could add the protein in, you would be off.
Oh, yeah. People don't realize how much protein we need to consume.
1 gram for every,
way.
1 gram for every pound you have, at least.
It's a lot. When you consider that you might, if you're eating well, you might get 20 grams in a meal. Well, if you need 200, you have a ways to go.
Yes,
I
I
don't know
know.
if you said.
I need 230, so I have a lot.
So they need to be liquid. I consume liquid protein as well. Powder. I do powder. I do ready to drink 20, 30 grams a pop. And I can barely keep my muscle because I exercise a lot. And I don't consume 200 grams of
Yeah, but you
protein.
don't weigh that much.
It's a lot.
It's whatever your weight is what you need
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
And because I even my coffee, I don't use milk anymore. I use this certain protein that I put in for my milk. And I'm like, there's 30 grams right there for just my 2 coffees I have a day, plus, the drink. And then that's how you have to get it. You figure other ways, because if you're on anything and you're cutting your eating down, because you can only exercise so much to get rid of stuff. It's all about your mouth and the beverage, so whatever we take in, that's why I'm like, oh, and if somebody could do that, I would, especially if it was like Kirkland margarita, that would be even better.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to suggest it to them because I know the buyer. So I'm going to suggest
it wouldn't take them much to do a whole new, they already have the product, just add some protein to it and then call it their high protein margarita mix. And that stuff sells off the shelf so fast because it's so inexpensive for what you get that, that would be, and I could just tell my wife, you're having a margarita. Well, I'm just getting my protein.
This is your 5th protein.
I needed it. Yeah, no, I don't. No, the thing about that Kirkland margarita pre-mix with that tequila already, you don't need to drink much, especially when you cut back on drinking and then you have a drink like you haven't been. Oh my God, I've become a lightweight again. So. All right. Sorry, we kind of got off topic, but I think there's so many opportunities for beverages and in this world to get connected to people, to get your product out there is, I think, one of the biggest things that holds people back. They have a great idea, but they don't know where to give it to, or they think they're going to give it to somebody and someone's going to steal it or whatever else. I'm like, I don't care. I just want the product out there. If you want to send me a 1% royal, whatever, I don't care. It's not my issue. I just want that product because it's going to help me.
And you mentioned something very important. Most beverage entrepreneurs are first-time entrepreneurs. They don't come from an entrepreneurial background, which is a problem because although beverage is not complex, you can get you as an entrepreneur. What I see is they start with an idea. They want the formula done, which is expensive, and then they want the artwork done, which it's not so expensive, but it could be $2,000-3,000 or more. The formula will range in price, but that's what the mentality is. Let me get to the formula, and it's a special formula. The problem is you cannot patent a formula. So in the beverage industry, we don't see your formula as part of your intellectual property. Your business model is your intellectual property. Your ability to make an emotional connection with the consumer, that's gold. That's the unicorn company that you can sell, take public, etc. Not the formula. If you have a crappy formula and you know how to get into liquor stores and convenience stores, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, that's what they call it. I'm in Modesto, California, so we have EJ Gallo. They had some of the worst jug wine back in the day, but it sold because it was cheap.
Yeah.
And they made a fortune. Now now they bought all those bigger brands so that they feel like there's somebody because they own so many expensive brands now.
Yeah.
They still have those big concrete vats right downtown here in Modesto that are filled with wine for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they keep them at their big concrete vats because that they cycle certain ones so that they keep the formula the same, but that's not the good wine, that's the cheap wine. All right, so I didn't know that. That's like t-shirts. You can't patent, or not patent, but on t-shirts you can't trademark a design on a t-shirt unless it has your logo in it. Then you can that's it. But a regular saying or any kind of stuff, you can't. Because I created some t-shirts for all my different shows and everything. I was worried about it. So I researched. I was like, no, you can't. I was like, really? How do you protect? And that's why what I'm doing is I have a caricature of myself. I'm hiding it inside of the stuff so that it's in there. And so if you're taking it, you have to find me in there, almost like Where's Waldo? That from San Diego, or Carmen San Diego or whatever.
That's clever. I like it. That's clever.
It just, that's, and also then for people to find it, right?
Yeah. No,
Where is Ed today? Where is he on this location? Yes. But so, I mean, there's just certain things you can do, but you're right. Your branding, how you come across, how people love you, whatever, that's what you're selling. You're not selling the formula is what you're saying. So what you're telling me is old Coke versus new Coke. Everybody, they can't protect themselves with that formula.
That's where they hate it.
Okay. So it's kind of like Colonel Sanders ingredients. You can't protect, but people can back, the way things are these days, anybody can take something and make it. If they get the ingredients, they can figure out what's in there. They might not know exactly what is what, but they'll eventually figure it out.
Yeah, you can reverse engineer.
That's the word I was looking for.
Formula in probably a couple of days, 2 days. The biggest wait is waiting for the lab to do the analysis of the ingredients. That takes the longest. Once you get that, the tinkering in the lab, a day, and you have whatever formula you want. That doesn't mean you're going to make Coke money, because they're an emotional brand. They're not a soda brand. They already won the game.
Right. That's like Dr. Pepper versus Mr. Pibb.
Yeah.
It's like A&W Ruger versus Bart's, or
exactly.
It's pretty. They probably are close in formula, but it's all about the branding.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. What besides Rich Dad Poor Dad? What book do you recommend somebody read if they're going to start a business?
I'm always very, very particular about the books that I recommend. Everybody is at a different stage and at a different age. I read that book at the right age, at the right stage, and that's why it clicked with me. Somebody else could read that book and say whatever, right? Maybe they're already an entrepreneur, or they've worked for entrepreneurs.
I think that book will click with anybody.
You think so?
Rich Dad Poor Dad clicks with a lot of people, no matter where they're at, because it teaches them not to take their time for money. So I don't care where you are. You kind of get the concepts of real estate and owning this and doing this and that. Those certain, you might not get the whole book, but I think there's one thing in there that might hit you today that is different than in a month, a year, 5 years, or 10 years from now.
Yes. And I've recommended that book in Mexico as well. Padre Rico, Padre Pobre, the translation. And it does click in Mexico as well. It does click. I think leadership is very important. Entrepreneurship, leadership, risk, and the ability to take risk is very important. And I think it's a learned behavior. If you don't bring it to the table, it can destroy you. Failure in business can destroy you if you don't see it correctly. In the US educational system, we have the F for failure, or fail, which I hate, because now we're teaching people that failing is wrong. And then you get to be an entrepreneur, and failing is good if you fail forward, right? You fail. This is why Silicon Valley wants to invest in founders only. Doesn't matter if you're a successful founder, because they say that it's not going to destroy you. Whatever happens, and you're already prepared because you already did it once. Now, I like to go back to the original books, because a lot of the books that are coming out now, it's just the same messaging that we already read when we were young bucks. How to Make Friends and Influence People helped me a lot, because when I came back to the US, I had to sell. And I just reverted to that book, which is an ancient book. However, it is probably the best one available to learn about other people, how to make an emotional connection, rapport with other people fast, by understanding people, not by manipulating people, but by understanding them, and then having empathy and kindness. When I started doing that in business, which I call now marketing karma, I started seeing incredible results. Even when I got hired to go to Germany, I got hired because I was taking a lot of people that I met. I was teaching Spanish at a little school here in San Diego. I would take them out to Tijuana to eat tacos, to the beach, right? To around San Diego.
Not hot dogs with bacon wrapped around it?
That's only after 2:00 in the morning.
Ain't that a fact?
And then somebody hired me, right? Somebody from that group that I was taking out to see the city, I got hired. So I think that's another book that I would recommend. Then another one that's dense, but to understand economics and capitalism, I would recommend Debt: The First 5,000 Years. This one will allow us to understand capitalism starting 5,000 years ago and the evolution of capitalism, how the stock market was born, how trade was born. It will debunk a lot of the things that they taught us in school, like the barter system, right? It will debunk the barter system without a common trade object or thing, which we call now money. But back then there was no money, but there was something that you could base your trade in. And depending on where you were in the world, right? It could be gold, but it could also be seashells, depending on where you live. Right. So that's another one that I recommend. Of the three, it's the toughest one to read. However, I think it teaches the most on capitalism. I've sent 5 companies public, and I don't think I could have done it without reading that book.
Wow. All right. So your marketing karma has to do with selling?
Actually, my marketing karma,
or is that the art of storytelling? Keep going. I'm sorry.
It's both, because what happens is I started my marketing journey with what I called influence, not marketing. I was studying religion and politics in Mexico since I was about 12 years old. How could the government manipulate the people and have what was back then one political party? And then everybody was happy. And this, in my mind, was an impossibility. Why are people not rebelling? Why are people not jumping? Right? So then I wanted to understand the influence that the government had. And of course, Mexico was Catholic. And I wanted to understand how they could have a foothold on religion, like a monopoly. Right? That was incredible. When I realized that you can apply influence to business and they call it marketing, I started making money, because I didn't start this thing to make money. I started to understand it. But then I realized that it's just marketing. You turn that into capitalism, and it's marketing. And this is how I could go out the ladder so fast in a company, because I already understood a lot of the basics. The book does the same thing. First, it talks about influence, then it talks about storytelling, but then it talks about the real meaning of karma, which is also what I call karma coins, that you put in your karma coins in your bank, and one day you can cash them, or you can cash them as you go. And if you understand how that works and how you're accumulating the karma, then you will understand the book, and then you will be a master and influence.
Gotcha. Now, have you read Zig Ziglar books?
Yes.
How are you considering, because some people think Zig Ziglar was into, or some people talk about old school selling as like manipulation. I don't think it is. I think it's just you're influencing people to do a decision they already want to do. You're just helping them get there. That's called persuasion, not manipulation. Yes. And I think people get that wrong. Because some people say I can sell ice to an Eskimo. The first question is, why would you?
Yes, precisely. Yes. I like Zig Ziglar, and I at one point I was looking for every single speech that was on back then on the internet or on tape, right? Because he goes way back. So this is before the internet. I would see them on tape or listen to them.
Hold on, cassette tape. Yeah.
I would have the cassette tapes, and I would put Rome, Ziglar, all of the greats from back in the day, because they're phenomenal speakers, right?
And they're also still great on the stage.
What's that?
They're still great to this day. Everybody's regurgitating exactly what they say.
Yes.
Except for his son, because his son's nowhere close to Zig Ziglar. But I mean, it's the same stuff. I don't care. Brian Tracy, all the different people out there. Somebody else is talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, that's amazing! Oh, that's so and so."
Yes.
Yeah.
Tracy. I had the opportunity to be the chief marketing officer for Dan Kennedy, the copywriter, GKAC. I learned a lot from him. Copywriting, specifically in copywriting, which I think it's another skill that if you want to
open a skill, it's a superpower.
You have to yes, you have to study copywriting. That is you must study copywriting. And he studied from other greats, but his knowledge represents a lot of the people, a lot of the giants that he studied in the past as well. So copywriting is another skill that I think it's necessary. Speaking is necessary as well. I competed in Mexico in speech since I was 7. When I came here, one of the first things that I did was join Toastmasters because I wanted to speak professionally in the US. I was already speaking in Mexico, competing, and I did about 5 years of keynotes, and I loved it in English. Well, no, in Spanish also, because I was invited to do speeches in Mexico as well. So speaking correctly with the body of knowledge is very important as well.
Jorge, is there anything I didn't ask you I should have asked you today?
I think one of the things is how do you scale companies and take them public? I think
that's people, a totally different show.
You're right.
I mean, that's not like something you can do in 5 minutes. That's a half hour.
That's an important question. We're talking about smaller businesses today and entrepreneurship. I think mindset would be a very important one. You have to change your mindset if you're going into business, and you have to see the other people not in business as the matrix. You have to see that they're living in a scam, and you figured it out, and you're going to continue until you can make it. So you're not going back. You burned the ships. I think mindset is very important.
Oh, I totally agree. Because if you don't go, and that's the difference about owning versus, I was telling somebody else when I worked for a guy, I thought I spent his money the same way I would as him as the owner. And until I got out on my own and my own business. And it's like, no, even though I was really good, but no, it was no way the same. And people need to understand that it's not an overnight success. It's usually 15 years of overnight successes.
That's right.
Yeah. And then, or 10 years at least, there's time you got to put in. If you buy a business, it might come faster, but if you're building your own business from scratch, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Jorge, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you being here. How do people find you, or do you want people to find you?
Yes, you can find me at jorgeolson.com, my name, and you can contact me there, join my newsletter, etc.
All right. Jorge, thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
And that's a wrap for today's show. I want to thank Jorge Olson for being here, the marketer, the author, the entrepreneur, and the living proof that your story is your superpower. From childhood poverty to CEO, from brain injury to boardroom, Jorge's journey shows us that every failure is just raw materials for your next breakthrough. If you want to dive deeper into Jorge's world, head over to jorgeolson.com. That's JORGEOLSON.com and sign up for his free weekly webinars. You'll get direct access to his insights on branding, fundraising, storytelling, and more. And as always, if you love this episode, share it with friends, subscribe, and leave a review, because your support helps us keep bringing you the Edison moments that matter most. Until next time, keep failing forward.